27 August 2022. And this is episode 44 of This and That and What a Fuck. In this one, I'll talk about the global revolution, which I've got a very keen interest in. And then some of that Balkan states are carrying on with their madness. And I've got some NATO information. And what a fuck that will make your eyes pop. Now, just before I begin some housekeeping, I really need two things: likes and subscribes, because that is the things that drives the YouTube algorithm, and it is a lot of time that I invest in making these things, and at this point in time I'm getting nothing back for it, and you can help me, and it's costing you nothing. Just hit the like and hit the subscribe. It's all for free. There's this one. India-Russia trade surging. Ambassador tells RT. Trade turnover between India and Russia has grown in both volume and scope in recent months, Indian ambassador to Moscow, Pavan Kapoor, told RT on Tuesday. There is tremendous hope for increasing our trade and economic cooperation. We've seen just in the last few months a certain change in the direction of trade. Now, this is something to take note of. While the West is basically disarming themselves and bankrupting themselves in the Ukraine, Russia has turned to the east and the south. And what is happening, it's all small steps, but it's happening a lot faster than I expected it to happen. The non-West is setting up a trading environment to make them totally independent from the existing Western global monopoly when it comes to financials. And I think the biggest mistake, strategic mistake that the West made was when they cut Russia off from the SWIFT system, because that really angered a lot of people that is not part of the Western alliance against Russia, but they were staying out of the fight. And suddenly, the West made it impossible for them to trade with Russia. And I think the West miscalculated, and they did not take cognizance of the fact that the so-called rest of the world was busy growing, just like the West did in the 50s and 60s. The rest of the world is now going that same route. And countries that was 10 and 15 years ago, nothing. So all of a sudden, they are becoming important in the commercial world. But this is not the first time that the West made a mistake. And then there's this. Russia and India no longer needs the US dollar. BRICS International Forum President. The BRICS International Forum President told reporters on Wednesday that there is no need for our countries to use the dollar after implementing ruble and rupee measures to conduct settlements. BRICS countries are opening up to Russia, offering the opportunity for the country to overcome the consequences of the Western sanctions. And there is something very important, and the West better take note. In any case, it's too late for the West to do anything about it. They must just now look at this and then go back and reconsider their attitude. The days of a monopolar world is over, and the Western countries will have to adapt to this and show the rest of the world that they can be good neighbors. But the warmonger sitting in a shithouse in Washington is not going to go down quietly. And this graphic is something to take note of, and it is just interesting. The West is getting worse at pushing through the anti-Russian agenda at the UN. In March, the West managed to put a squeeze on 141 UN countries to sign a resolution demanding that Russia stop the special operation. Already in April, only 93 countries agreed to approve a resolution suspending Russia's participation in the UN Human Rights Council. And in August, 54 countries signed a document expressing regret that Russia did not stop the special operation. That's a dramatic drop in support. And then we've got this one here. It's a deal. Amidst talks with Russia on minerals and herbs for oil swap, Minister of Industry and Trade of Afghanistan, Nuridan Azizi, expressed plans to supply Russia with raisins and medicinal herbs in addition to negotiations with Russia on a supply of 1 million tons of gasoline and 1 million tons of diesel. And there's a strong barter element in here, and it makes sense because Afghanistan has been impoverished by the war, and now we sit with a situation that America has basically stolen a lot of Afghanistan foreign assets. And then this one here. The West still hasn't figured out that those nations who produce energy and can sell it to friendly nations very cheaply are probably nations that you shouldn't try to topple their governments and destroy their economies, financial systems and currencies. Western stupidity knows no bounds. And I actually like that image. It tells a story of its own. And then just a little bit more on the Russia-India thing. We have implemented the mechanism of mutual settlements in rubles and rupees, and there is no need for our countries to use the dollar in mutual settlements. And today, a similar mechanism of mutual settlements in rubles and yuan is being developed by China. This is a major move. And I've said that this is going to happen way back in March already. And the fact is, I didn't expect it to happen so rapidly. But what we are seeing here is the final slip and slide of the dollar as the only or the major currency for foreign trade. Those days are gone. And one of the side effects of the diminishing dollar in world trades will be that the US can no longer export its inflation to the rest of the world. Now this is a sobering piece of information. I'm not going to read all of it, but you can pause the thing and read it. Russia and Iran together will be able to control the global gas market following the example of oil OPEC. If OPEC includes 13 countries plus Russia, then an alliance of 2 countries is enough for gas cartel, since the main gas production in the world is in the USA, 732 billion cubic meters per year, Russia 643 billion cubic meters, and Iran 174 billion cubic meters. At the same time, about 13.5 trillion cubic meters of gas have been explored in the United States, and more than 48 trillion cubic meters have been explored in Russia. In Iran, almost 34 trillion cubic meters. This is almost half of the total explored volume of gas on the planet. Now this is something that we must watch with interest, because if Russia and Iran runs the gas market like the Middle East were running the OPEC market and oil, the West is in for a rough ride. And just a reminder of this, Russia and India no longer need the US dollar, BRICS president. The 2 countries have successfully established a mechanism for mutual settlements in rubles and rupees. So, another nail in the coffin of the dollar. And here is just a little bit of info. It's maybe good, and you should pass this on to your children. The worst thing you can do for those you love is the things they could and should do themselves. There's a lot of truth in that. Now we get to Latvia. Latvian president calls to deal with Russian-speaking Latvian residents who don't support Riga's anti-Russian stance by isolating them from society. What the actual fuck is going on in Europe? This is brutal racism. This is racism. There's no other word for it. But think back to the 40s, last 1940s. Think back what happened in Europe. And look what this idiot is doing now in Latvia. And more from Latvia. Russia offers visas to Latvian defenders of demolished monument. Russia is ready to grant asylum to Latvians who face harassment in their home country for protecting their government's crackdown on Soviet-era symbols. there's a big bowl of shit brewing for the Balkan countries. Just watch, because it is a fact. They have got a lot of citizens that are either Russians or very pro-Russian or has Russian family. These governments are going to fall. And more from Latvia. Gas prices in Latvia jumped almost 10 times. Previously 1 megawatt per hour cost 24 euros, now it costs 200 euros. And that is the issue. And I would like to know what the Latvian government is saying now. How is the sanctions working for them? And then we go to Lithuania. In Lithuania, the number of bankruptcies in 2022 increased almost 2 times. In January to June, 586 enterprises went bankrupt in the Republic. Most of them are in the construction sector as well as in the trade sector. Without the support of the state, the number of bankrupt enterprises will only increase. Support that state is going to get where their economy is collapsing under their feet. Their citizens are going to be jobless. This is a moorse problem for them. And then we get to NATO. NATO rearing its ugly head, or so it seems partially, or so it seems in partially recognized Kosovo. A Serbian media claims army instructors from the UK, US, Turkey and Germany teaching Kosovo police and security service units to disperse protesters. Guys, this is a fuck up. What are the NATO troops doing in Kosovo? That Kosovo should never have been independent. But NATO created that shithole specifically to terrorize Serbia. And then there's more. Ukraine complains to Spain, not satisfied with the lack of military assistance from Madrid as last package was in May. Where the fuck does Zelensky get the right from making demands like this? And then there's this table, and you should take a good look at it and ask yourself whether it is a wise move for NATO and the US to challenge the rest. Look at those numbers. Just look at those numbers of soldiers. That first 3, look at their combined numbers. 3, 5, 5.5, almost, 5.5 million soldiers. United States, 1.3 million. And then you must add North Korea to that top 3. So another 1.2 million. The West better reconsider its arrogance. And then we get this from Germany. Now, this woman is not capable of being a foreign minister. Wells run dry. German foreign minister Annalena Baerbock can't hide what no longer exists, as she admits German army facing absolute shortage of weapons. How crazy is that? But I've said it many times, Zelensky is disarming NATO. And then there's more on that. Germany can't send any more weapons to Ukraine from its own military stocks because it's already facing serious equipment shortages. But will that stop them? No. And then there's more on that. Absolute deficit in Germany's weapon stocks. Unfortunately, the situation here is such that we have an absolute deficit in our own stocks and should therefore produce hardware specifically for Ukraine. And that production we know clearly 3, 4, 5 years down the line. And now we get to the racism shit. Most social media platforms, or even woke ones, won't allow anyone to post and promote killing someone. But ladies and gentlemen, a South African court of law says it's okay. And this is based on that judgment in which that court decided kill the boer, kill the farmer is okay to sing that. It is not hate speech. And then we've got this here. Black thug sees a white kid on a sidewalk and decides to stop and viciously attack him and drive off. I looked at the whole video. It is actually scary what happened there. But guys, this is the world. This is reality. And then we get to the Russia hate. And look at this stupid move by YouTube. YouTube blocks account of Russian vehicle manufacturer KAMAZ. The blocking of the account is indefinite and it is in association with sanctions against the company. KAMAZ trucks are probably the company's most recognizable product, often competing in the famed Dakar rally. How childish is that? And then we get to this one, which is absolutely astonishing. It is actually sickening. Look at that massive monument. The Riga police published aerial footage of the destruction of the obelisk to the liberators. In total, 4 people were detained for disobeying the demands. That obelisk was erected for the Russian soldiers that saved this fucking country, which is now a shithole, from the Nazis. And this is how they say thank you. They deserve to crumble just like that. And here's another clip in that video that I clipped. Look at that. It is fucking sickening. This is barbarians. Barbarians do things like this. Barbarians try to wipe history out. I see it here in my own country, South Africa. These fucking low IQ barbarians that are damaging monuments from our past. Barbarians, that is what they are, barbarians. But let's wait and see. I am quite sure that the Russians are sitting there in the Kremlin and they look at this type of shit and just shake their heads and think, okay, your time is coming. And then we get to that what the fuck, and this is actually a scary what the fuck. Think carefully what you read here. SA Army introduces hand-to-hand combat training. What the flying fuck is that? Introducing hand-to-hand combat training in the SA Army. What the hell were they training these guys then for? Just to lay around on the steps and sidewalks and eat fried chicken and throw the papers and the cans in the gutters. And that's it. Getting overweight, getting to... When I was in my time, the stocks in military uniforms went to a size 38 and that was the end of the story. Pants went to size 36 and that was the end of the story. Yeah, some of these today is 5XLs because they're fat, slops, and they are unfit, but they are the army of South Africa. I cannot take this. In any case, please hit the like and the subscribe. I need the support. Thank you.